first of all, I want to really thank you again for speaking to me. And, it's so always wonderful to speak to you, and thank you for your time.
Well, I thank you that you are ready to listen to me.
So I've been so excited about this conversation and want to just kind of set out a little bit of a scene here in terms of why I want to speak to you about this particular subject. So since the pandemic has kicked off, a lot of people around the world have become extremely fearful of what's going to happen in the future. A lot of us who've been doing deep contemplative meditations and all these kind of things have known that we don't really know what the future holds. So we kind of come to peace with that anyway, but regular people haven't. And then there has been another group of people who have been preparing for any kind of circumstance. And a lot of them I've been speaking to around the idea of organizing our own commune of a sort, or like a mini city, and thinking through how to do that in best way possible. And then whoever I think about in the world who's done this before, the only person that ever comes to mind is you, as a person who's both got experience in it, who's succeeded in it, and made your own mistakes that you can then advise us now on what to do and what not to do. So that's really the subject matter, is like how to build your own city, no matter what the circumstances are, that's sustainable and nice place to live in. Basically, that's our subject. And so what's the first thing that comes to mind when that subject is raised for you? And then what I want to do is I want to use this model, which I'm writing a book about called Designed Company, to go through each one of these topics, which is purpose, people, systems, innovation, products, money, and growth, and at least touch on each one of those with regards to building that sustainable communal city. So what's the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about building your own city?
Well, for me, building a city was not a project I started with. It was a manifestation of the love that I felt for Bhagwan, and it was Bhagwan's dream. This dream he had that the community can live together and engage themselves in a common event. For him, the common event was to sit and live in meditation, live life in harmony. It was a collective effort, though I was responsible for it. Without support of his other followers, it would not have been possible. So one thing that comes in mind, that one has to have a common interest.
So that's in this model, that's purpose, and that's why it sits here at the heart of it. So how would we ensure that purpose and that common sense of purpose and mission is continuously communicated in a commune?
Well, that is where my ability came in handy. To maintain this common interest, Bhagwan would guide me, and I would pass it on without filter the information to his commune members. So it was very important that I and Bhagwan had a very clear communication. And this communication, I was able to transport it to his people.
So then when we're talking about the people, there is an element of inside and outside aspects of this. So in terms of the people, so right now, for example, I'm talking to 3 or 4 guys who have been saying, as soon as the quarantines is lifted, I want to go and set up somewhere where I don't have to depend on anybody else. Okay. So there's some sort of like organizing committee there that is kind of initiating the idea and bringing it forth. Who are the key players that are required to start a commune?
When you have people who begin feeling that I'm going to go somewhere and then all my worries are over, you're going to be highly disappointed.
Okay, that's why I'm so happy I'm speaking to you, because this is exactly what I need to hear. Okay.
One thing, when you explained to me what you wanted to talk today, you talked about fears of people, of uncertainty of the future right now with COVID-19. Life was always uncertain. Mm-hmm. It was never certain. If life was certain, then many of the stock markets would not have gone down. And every few years, they go down. Every few years, a couple of people commit suicide because their dream was shattered. But there are only 2 certainty in life. One is change. Change is for certain. And another is no one knows of the future. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something we know on a daily basis, that we don't know what tomorrow is going to be or the next moment is going to be. But somehow we have digested this information well, and we think we have tomorrow, the next moment, everything in our grip. We delude ourselves fairly well. So, to all your friends and colleagues, no disrespect to them, but I would say, if you go with expectation in the project, then project will fail. Because there will be a moment in life will come where you are unhappy for no reason or for reason. And that unhappiness will lead into disappointment. We are all expert in finding fault in others. And passing on the responsibility to others. So make sure that anyone who is involved in this project, that disappointments will come in one form or another, and have stomach to digest. And carry on with the basic purpose of your coming together. So it's very important to have your intention clear. Why do you want to create this community? What is the purpose of this community? We were all in love with Bhagwan. We had easy. You know? And still, there were moments where some of us got disappointed, because we all have ego and expectations.
So then the next thing is looking at more of the outside aspects of the people bit, which is, let's say I find, these guys that I'm talking about, I've been chatting to them conceptually about this idea for a long time, and because the life is good in as we call it, the matrix, right? Life is okay, people making some money and so on. And now when the oppression has come down a lot more from the government saying, you shall do this, you won't do that, stay at home, don't leave, don't see your family, all this kind of stuff. Like, we're just kind of gone, well, if we had our own place and our own community, we wouldn't have this oppressive regime telling us what to do, and we would be able to actually follow our own purpose as we've been doing anyway, but like in a lot more purer way. But then we know that other people would get attracted to this. So how to then manage with this initial team, how to manage the other people who are looking to join that commune?
Again, it comes down to the purpose. Why this commune? And the common reason for it. The other people will also be part of that common reason. Otherwise, it's not interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are attracted to the common collective interest, they will come there. And the evil of outer forces like politics, economics, and religion will be part and parcel of your block stones. They will be the blocks that you will have to deal with it. The moment you begin something, you will be classified as cult. No two ways. The first journalist that will come to ask you and will not believe your motives. They will come with doubts in their mind. And there won't be any positive entry of people at all. So these are the things you will have to be prepared for.
I coined a phrase that says, expect the worst, prepare the best. That helps me understand that as long as I keep preparing internally, then whatever comes, I ought to be able to deal with it. And if I can't, it means I need to prepare better, because it's actually even worse than I expected.
You are absolutely right, Jason. And bear in mind that you have to digest the negativity of the others. Because others' negativity, they are not bothered by it. But you will be affected. So you have to have strong enough stomach to digest it.
Yeah. That's a given. I've kind of learned that lesson over the years. I spent 3 years living through war in Bosnia, which taught me a lot of lessons. But then in some sense, one comes to a realization that the world is at war all the time. People are at war with themselves first, because they don't really have that peace in their hearts, in their souls, in their minds. And then they're psycho-projecting war, whether they know it, whether they're conscious of it or not, but they're psycho-projecting elements of war. And then they bring that into communities. So then we move on to the system. So obviously now we've got purpose and the people. There is, in management science, believe it or not, there is something known as holacracy, which is the idea that everyone's a manager and everyone's a boss and a worker at the same time. So as long as they're driven by the same purpose, they should know how they can best add value to the community and do something that is on purpose, as in serving the greater purpose. So talk to me a little bit about what your best practices have been in terms of creating that self-management system or management system across the commune.
I had two important situation. One, for me, it was very clear. Bhagwan was my boss, and his wish was my priority. Not only that, it was supported by the complete commune, that Bhagwan was the boss and he put out the ground rules. Second one was, he was not interested in any lazy people and lazy people with advice and wisdom. I had no conflict there.
A technical term, I think, in management, that's called smart asses.
Right. But Bhagwan was very precise in explaining to me what I have to avoid. And when you know what you have to avoid already, you are ahead of the game. And he was smart. Not smart as, he was smart. He knew what he was talking about. He knew human nature. And he was a master of human psychology. So in the moments of conflicts, he always guided me in a right way.
So are there any specific kind of best practices in terms of setting up the system for, let's say, self-maintenance of the commune and maintaining that system and maybe evolving that system? What are the core kind of best practice guidelines there?
That is where my ability came. I was very practical. And practical person listens to everybody's advices without judging it, first gets the information. After the information, I would analyze, is it in accordance with the Bhagwan's set of desires or the Bhagwan's teachings? And then I would decide. Female subordinates made life a lot easier. And I'm not saying this to put male down or to annoy male. It was simply female very, very ready to trust. And they loved Bhagwan explicitly. So from these 2 points, female became the guiding force. And they were ready to take the risk. They did not worry of tomorrow. They were happy in the moment that we could be around Bhagwan and Bhagwan's presence. That was enough. And tomorrow will come anyway, and we will deal with it.
So what are the core systemic challenges of maintaining a commune, especially when it starts growing?
We had, for every little situation, immediately we implemented the mistakes and betterment. For example, it was middle of the winter and one of the dam on the creek breaks. Bhagwan is cut off from the main street. He could not come over. We could not go over. At that time, we didn't have any helicopter either. So when this event happened, the immediate thought was, how can we secure the situation? First, it should not have happened, but you know, Mother Nature, you can't fight. And then, how can we take care of things we might have ignored it? And that becomes our learning process. And that is how we made situations secure. It was like we were talking about Bhagwan's immigration. There you are with outside negative forces involved.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Bhagwan should have been automatically given the permission to stay in America, a green card, men of exceptional ability. You have no more proof needed for his exceptional ability because he had already at that time 350 books out. He had translated 18 languages, some of these books. He was well known all over the world for his ability. He was involved with new psychology and new therapies. And the man was exceptionally intelligent. He didn't need any more proof. But because of the government's negativity, government's displeasure towards Bhagwan, so we had another fallback position. So if exceptional abilities doesn't work, then we were ahead, we were preparing him as a religious leader. And Bhagwan was always against religion. So for religious leader, then he should qualify. So the first issue comes from the legal department that religion, you have to become a religion. Then what is the definition of religion? And Western world knows only one way of religion. That is, you have to have Bible or Quran.
Mm-hmm.
You have to priest and church, and you have to have nunnery or the priesthood. All these elements we had in our life. But now we had to present it in the order on the paper. So I speak with Bhagwan about it. Bhagwan says, no problem. We create a book of Rajneeshism. He dictated me in 3 days the whole book. So you have to, stretch your resources.
So you have to work with the current system as well as your own system that you're developing. By the way, that book of Rajneeshpuram on Amazon at the moment is £970.
Oh, it's from my book, huh?
um, so okay, so then comes the innovation bit. So innovation, you already mentioned some things, which is the continuous evolution of your learning and improvement to the how to approach the systems, and having these resilience approaches around plan A, plan B, plan C. And again, it's kind of expecting the worst, preparing the best sort of approach there. But in terms of innovation, what comes to my mind is, if I get a bunch of guys to start off with in a commune, I think they're going to get bored very quickly. Let's say we're somewhere sitting in the forest and we start talking our stories, and after 4 days, we've kind of run out of all the stories to tell. You know, how do you keep the innovation and that kind of interest bubbling under?
Innovation is very important. That is the sign of intelligence and change. So if you can accept change, and if you are not rigid, innovation is the next step. In 80s, we were thinking of betterment of the land. We were thinking of environment when people were not talking about environment. So that was also because we had an experiment, not just to sit together and meditate and vegetate, but to continue in intelligent way. If you meditate more than 1 hour, you'll get probably sick because you have not moved your body and mind much. So you need activities, and innovation brings the activities. It keeps the mind greased, in my simple language.
So what are the kind of like some great ideas for people to keep keep things interesting in the commune and keep that lifestyle sort of innovative and changing? Because obviously nature brings us a lot. In my garden, I could just kind of sit in nature, and it's like there's different birds that come, and that's quite interesting and so on. But also, like, humans want that kind of innovation from the mind. Maybe there's like a better way to have a little sort of gathering together, or better ways to cook dinners, or all that kind of stuff. What are kind of core things that kind of need to be there?
For me, problem is mother of invention. When you have any crisis or any problematic situation, if you look at it positively, you will find the way to deal with it. And don't forget to have fun with it. So when you have worked on an issue hard, then you require a little rest and a little pleasure activities. You can decide for yourself what is a pleasure activities. If you are, connoisseur on food, then enjoy a nice dish of food. Or if you like sweets, then lovely chocolates or whatever, I'm more of a fruit person. I enjoy a good fruit, like that. But every small thing turn it into event.
Mm. Mm.
And by doing that way, pleasures will return and you will feel more relaxed and you will be able to deal with the next issue, next problem, lot better.
Mm. Yeah, make it a big deal. Make a small thing a big deal. Make a small good thing a big deal, not small bad thing a big deal.
Exactly.
Okay, so then in terms of the products, here we're talking now more about the things, but also experiences that people have. So living in a commune requires a bunch of products to be both consumed, created, maintained, but also people have that life experience, as you said. If I'm sitting longer than an hour in meditation, my backside starts hurting, and then it's not a competition to who can bear more backside pain. What happens in respect to managing things, creating new things, maintaining new things? Because one thing I've learned over my life is that I sometimes phrase it like this: maintenance is a bitch. In other words, it costs a lot of money to maintain things that you ultimately don't necessarily need. So there's been a big trend towards living minimalistically and then really using those things that you really need optimally. So what are the things that are needed in a commune?
We were sort of minimalist and Bhagwan was sort of materialist.
Maximalist.
Maximalist, right. But we don't use here Bhagwan as an example. But bear in mind, it helps to be minimalist, also to become environmentalist. More objects you have, more material you have to think of entsorgen.
Storage, yeah.
Not just storage, but to get rid of them.
Mm-hmm. Disposal, yeah.
Disposal, that was the word I was looking. Disposal. Nowadays, if you think of oceans, oceans are full of garbage. Mm. If you go into valleys or look from top into the valleys, valleys are full of plastic and garbage, no matter where you go. So it is better to create things that are long-lasting, easy to clean and maintain without much work on it. And this way, maybe we will be able to help the environment also. So, and I am, I still wear the clothes that I had bought maybe 15, 20 years back. I don't need much. Maybe in my bed, I have 5 pillows. That is too much, but that's the only luxury.
Yeah, so one of the trends that's becoming more and more of a thing these days is what they call circular design, which is the idea of reusing all the materials for things that have been made so as to prevent pollution from happening, but also actually to prevent from that like disposal overheads and actually enable the, let's say in this case, commune, to maintain itself without having to go so much outside to fetch and forage for new resources, because resources are being recycled internally. And every good gardener will know that manure is not something to be thrown away. Flowers grow out of manure, and fruits and vegetables and so on. So there is that circular nature to nature itself. And also when you were saying about hoarding and things like that and oversupplies, I often look at the birds that come into our garden, and they're picking the earthworms from the ground, but they're never hoarding them, right? They're just always picking as many as they need, and then they take it to their nest and so on. And they're quite happy to do that over and over again, and that keeps the circle of life going. So what about money management? How does that work in a commune?
Well, it was very simple. In our commune, there was no restriction for use of Bhagwan. When Bhagwan needed something, there was no limit. But for rest of the people, we lived communally. We had a commune kitchen. We had communal clothing besides work clothing that you keep a couple of pairs in your room, etc. Then there was communal jewelry, communal fancy clothing for outside events when you go to meet with government people and you need a suit and a tie. Then you go to this communal area, you pick up from there clothing that you need, and there is much variety of the clothing. I know I used to go and buy myself for all those needs. And the people who were working for clothing, they maintained them. They made sure that the next person comes to use it. It is clean, ironed, and properly hanged for them to. They just have to go through this area and say, I will have this one to take, and they bring it back. So, and cars were the same way organized, that when somebody goes long distance, they have one car, short distance, another car, or the what is available. So we had this kind of communal things like a library also. We had library of Bhagwan's book, we had library for other books also. And same for the shoes.
Mm. But in terms of the money, like things like cash flow, money supply, because there is an element of, it's a sort of inner circle in some sense. It's a world on its own in some sense, but the money is kind of still some sort of means of exchanging value within even that world. So how does that work inside a commune?
Okay, for the commune members, we had prepaid cards. So, for example, I want to go and eat in a restaurant. I'm a commune member, and I can go maybe 4 times a month to a restaurant. And it would, then this card would comply with my use of 4 times. If I want to go buy a present in a boutique, then also this card would function. When people coming from outside, then they use the normal money, or they can also buy a card. And this way they don't have to carry cash around. You will have to create either your own monetary system, or you have to take the outside monetary system. We were not paid workers in commune. So we had these facility cards that we can use freely, the facilities of the commune, without paying for it. And this was decided by our accounting department according to the income and expense. Unfortunately, I don't have too many details of it because one of my very trusted person dealt with the accounting.
So to what extent is there a notion of economy design that you had run? Because let's say if people don't get paid, to work, like how do they? Because ultimately, like there is this notion of people undocking themselves from the matrix, right? So if they leave the city, they go into a commune. Well, okay, so they'll work there, but they sort of need to be rewarded for their work so that they can, afford food and things like that. So how does that run?
We were rewarded with a smile of Bhagwan, or seeing Bhagwan once in a while privately, or Bhagwan would stop his car and for a few moments from his car he would dance. That was our reward. Or sit in a front row when Bhagwan is there in meditation hall. So our rewards were very simple. And truly, if I would say to you, I never thought of money as something so important, except when I would have to go and buy jewelry for Bhagwan or buy Rolls Royces for Bhagwan. Otherwise, I had no sense of money.
Mm, mm. With today's world, we've got ways of actually generating these systems very quickly and like instantiating, creating money that can even be programmed to work certain ways. So it's quite exciting. This is quite an exciting subject matter to me. So in terms of growth, then how does a commune ensure both personal as well as interpersonal growth, and what are the growth factors there? Because inevitably, if it works and when it starts working, more people will start wanting to join the commune, and then that creates growth in terms of numbers, but also all the other aspects are impacted. You need better, bigger system. You need to maybe keep it more fun from day to day. There are more things to manage in terms of products and so on. What are the growth considerations in a commune?
One of the biggest product was the service sector. Wherever people are there, you got to offer services. And these services was one of the biggest resource. So with more people, your financial situation will increase, but it will also bring a lot more problems.
More people, more problems.
People, more problems. People equals problems. So you have to be prepared for that also. And emergencies are something that you should never ignore. You have to remember when something goes wrong, the whole community will be ready to blame. When something is good, whole community is ready to take the credit for it. I mean, I'm a perfect example of it.
Mm-hmm.
When I decide to leave, they could have carried on. No, but then everybody engaged in blame game. But when things were going good, everybody took the credit, and I think everybody deserves the credit because we all worked hard. And this sense, if you are the leader of this community, and I would say be generous with your whole community. Let community know as often as you can, but don't overdo it, how valuable they are. I'm asked by everyone, you built a city. No, I didn't build a city. It was a communal effort. I got lucky to have the responsibility and trust for it from Bhagwan.
So this idea that, and this has been spoken a little bit about in the sort of mainstream media, that people have tendency to internalize the gains and externalize the losses. In other words, all the bad stuff is their fault. All the good stuff, well, that was me. That's mine. That's my precious. And so, are there ways to counterbalance that? To say, well, hold on a second, everyone's both making some mistakes and some also good things that are contributing towards growth and maintenance and strengthening of the community. How can that be balanced?
You can't balance it, but you can train the new generation for change of values. Basic values, they have to. I have learned from my parents not to blame others when things go wrong. Stay straight and go through it. When you make mistake, you accept mistake and change it. So this value I was given by my parents, and I carry it, and I try to give it to my daughter. So we have to have set of values that need definitely a change. For example, right now, coronavirus situation, we are too busy blaming China, blaming this, blaming that. But if we are going to be just engaged in blame game, when are we going to find the solution? Where is the solution? And if there is no solution because it exists in the air and the water, then how are you going to deal with it? Then find individual ways to survive it. So it is a hard job, but young generation will have to have completely new set of social values, inner values, and community values.
So I have a 13-year-old son and an 8-year-old daughter, and I'm asking now a personal question here. How do you, as a mother, pass your values to them in a way that, you know, at the moment, my son is that like ego development stage, you know, and he is trying to counter argue every single thing that I say. So he is purposefully rejecting everything because they are kind of seeing us as a generation that's messed the world up. But they don't necessarily have the solutions as to how a better world would work, which I'm trying to pass on to him. But he's saying, no, you have messed the world up. So how do you personally have that conversation to pass the values without being rejected in the process?
Well, I would say, instead of me telling him how he can better the world, I would say, you tell me, I made a mistake, we messed up this world. What do you suggest that I have to do to change it?
Mm.
So I'm taking away indirectly his ego conflict with me, and say, instead of him trying to fight his, to show me that he knows, I just say, hey, I'm your mother, tell me. I would be very happy to know. And then one more important thing is, and I use it on a daily basis with my patient here, that is, if I don't do something, I don't tell them not to do it. It's like, I work with many alcoholics here, and I don't drink here. Then I can say, sorry, there is no drinks here. I don't drink, you don't drink. Then they accept it. But if I am drinking and telling them not to do it, that would not work. I had taken away we are non-smoking house, and average package of 80% of my patients smoke was 3 packs a day. And some of the people smoke 5 pack a day cigarette. I took them away from smoking. I worked with them 2 hard years, created extra work for me and all that. But now they are free of smoking, and their health is a lot better. We never use addiction as a compliment to offer to the patient. There are institutes, they offer cigarette as a reward. We don't do that. We are very clear about it. And what you don't want your children to do, you have to stop yourself.
That's my personal principle there is when people say practice what you preach, I've actually swapped that around to say preach what you practice. So I first check in with myself to go, am I or am I not doing that? And then whenever I say something, I make sure that it's integral to my doing, because they're always if at best they're just emulating what I'm doing, and they look to pick on, oh, you say that, but you don't do that. Whenever they find that, that's their kind of little sort of in on the argument. And there is an element of thinking about this as in, you know, that people that live in the commune are in some sense like the children of the commune. So the commune needs to be practicing or preaching what it's practicing. So it's kind of all a circular self-fulfilling system in that sense. What else do we need to know about running a healthy commune, Sheela?
I think very, very important is function of the heart. be there because you want to be there, not to gain something, but that is purpose of your life. Commune cannot be run because it's an economic or social event, so you don't feel alone or isolated. Commune has to function, only it can function with dedication. And Bhagwan was lucky. He had many dedicated people around him and people who loved him. Just as we, his community, were very lucky that we had opportunity to live with a man like Bhagwan.
So one thing there that's actually really interesting, and I always want to know this from people who use the word heart. You know, sometimes nowadays you got Sadhguru saying, you know, and he sort of says it in a little bit of a funny way, but he says it, heart is just a pump for the blood in the body. But of course, there's another, at least two meanings of the word heart, meaning as an emotional center or emotional faculty, but also there's like heart with perhaps capital H, which is like the soul or that kind of core essence of the human being. Tell me more about the heart. What do you mean when you say the word heart?
Heart and soul complement one another. When you function from the heart, you are functioning from your soul, from your inner being, from core of your being. I only know functioning of the heart is without purpose, without reason. It is purely human. And to be human, for me, is very important.
So how do you then answer a question? And I'm conscious of time, so this is my, I promise, last question for at least this conversation. How do you answer the question of who are you?
Who am I? I am what you see me, what you feel me. I am not afraid to say what I feel and what I think. I say it, do it, and feel it.
Sheela, thank you so much. I think this has been such a wonderful and informative conversation. I really thank you from the bottom of my heart. I
thank you also, Jason. It's a pleasure talking to you. But I have a bit of doubt. My answers are very non-technical, non-coherent. I hope you find what you're looking in it.
So for me, it's an important thing to speak to people who have got more life experience than we do. And I've always grown up with people who are much older than me, who have fed me either books or pointed me like, take a look at that, find out about that a little bit, and so on. So I've always learned to listen to those people who've been through more than I have, because in that sense, I consider myself to be slightly smarter in my approach because I'm looking to learn from other people's mistakes before I have to learn from mine. But also pick up on other people's advice, right? Which is equally, perhaps even more important. So that's why I'm speaking to you about this, because maybe we can turn this into some sort of blueprint and you know, start injecting more of this thinking, because it seems that the humanity and the civilization that has developed over the last bunch of decades, now it's become a lot more transparent that it's very unsustainable, and it's not from the heart, and it's very toxic in so many different ways, both spiritually, emotionally, and physically. And so nobody, the last time I checked, likes toxicity. Really, even people who are smoking and drinking, they're not really smoking and drinking because they want to be, but because they're just kind of trying to soothe and remedy some other deeper rooted heart, usually problems that they can resolve. And once they do resolve, we find that they let go of those kind of toxicities. So this is the kind of quest here, and the whatever little we can do to contribute towards that, the better the world we can leave behind us. So thank you so much once again, and lots of love to you.
Same here, and hope to talk to you again.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Bye-bye.